University of Western Ontario. If you read the leaders in the city of Vancouver, you find that an amazing number of them went to one school, St. George's, and they got little locker rooms and sports. And you're a goalie, I mean, you're a soccer player, and you're all louts, aren't you? I mean, isn't this just people getting together?
Well,
with a like mind?
It's all
How do you make it a conspiracy? I mean, families get together and say Hutterites get together in Canada, and they can pull a whole bunch of land.
David, let me put it this way. It's all a matter of perception and the way we see reality. You've just given a version of reality based on, I guess, being devil's advocate or whatever. I'll give you another version of reality.
Let me just have one more. Okay, I'm going to take that. John just put something in my ear here. John Richardson. Chrétien, for instance, blocked Conrad Black, or seems to have blocked him getting his peerage.
Well, look.
So if they're buddies, why is he doing that?
Well, I'll come to that in a second.
Okay, let's
let me just concentrate on this. We are supposed to have a society in which the people elect politicians, and the politicians look after the banks and all this stuff, and they look after people, and the politicians are supposed to serve the people. It's supposed to be an open society. It's supposed to be a free society. Now, when I'm talking about the organizations like the Bilderberg Group that all these guys are members of, and meet secretly with reporting bans, etc., I'm talking about just one element of a gigantic network. When you read The Biggest Secret and the works of many other people, you find that it's not just the same names coming up, even in one organization, which is alarming enough, but they come up everywhere you go. And let me just put it this way. Are we really saying that we should not be alarmed that the Prime Minister of Canada, the owner of the major newspapers in Canada, that the Prime Minister of Britain, the Chancellor of Germany, the last 6 Secretary Generals of NATO, every peace negotiator, whether appointed by the UN or the European Union in Bosnia, the World Bank head, major global bankers, intelligence agency people, major military people are all meeting secretly, and this is just one tiny example, staggeringly, to discuss the world and what's going to happen. And we don't know about it? I've said to journalists again and again all over the world, tell me about the Bilderberg Group. And their eyes glaze, what's the Bilderberg Group? Now, if we don't even know at that level, and this is a small level, the Bilderberg Group, compared with the higher elite organizations beyond it, if we don't even know about that, then I'm staggered that we can consider that something like that is just friends meeting together, especially when those who have managed to get information out of the Bilderberg Group and have published it have been proved by the passage of events that what was decided at that meeting was what unfolded in the world. And again, the agenda that comes out of the Bilderberg meetings is global centralization of finance, global centralization of political decision-making, world government, microchip people, world army, evolving NATO into a world police force, and this is the reality of what's going on. And if we want to write that off as a group of friends meeting and no conspiracy, then that's a choice. But it's a choice that's going to cost us very, very dear in the years ahead as the centralized global fascist state unfolds.
Well, see, I'm not against your theory, because I have...
I don't mind if you are, David. Yeah, I don't mind if you are. I couldn't care less.
I'm not against... Because we have this weird thing that's going on here in Vancouver. Now, let me give you one here. I'll give you some grist for your mill, and if where's your cameraman? This is back in the other room now. We have this thing called the Gillian Guess affair in Vancouver, which is Gillian Guess being the juror that had an affair with the person that was charged with murder.
Right.
You know, you haven't seen that because it went around the world now. In 1998, she was #2 newsmaker in North America. It was crazy. And Gillian's lawyer at the time I mean, this is, but I have a problem because Jillian's lawyer at the time ended up being, well, I go back and forth. She had formed a law partner with another lawyer that turned out was the lawyer for the guy that had been charged with murder, and then he became the lawyer for the premier of the province, who resigned. And the reason the premier of the province resigned was that he was having some business relationships with a guy whose sister was married to the best friend of the fellow that had been accused of murder. And I look at that and say, boy, that's too close for comfort. That there's a place where we have to stand. But you go to a court trial and you find that the prosecutor, the judge, and the defense lawyer are all buddies. I've been buddies for 15 years. And I was at one trial, a very serious trial, where during a break, the judge and the prosecutor went off, the defense lawyer and the prosecutor went off for a week's vacation together. They've been doing it every year for years. So when you've got people that are in control, when you have families that are, they've been doing business with each other for 400 years, like the Rothschilds, like the House of Windsor, for this God's sake. So when you've got these families, isn't it just that, I mean, I walk down the street and somebody comes up to me and says, how's your mother? I said, well, she died 14 years ago. And they said, oh, well, we went to school together in Below, Manitoba. We went to school together in Saskatoon.
David, we're talking here not even about politicians in Canada coming from the same flippant school. We are talking about global organizations that the public have no idea exist, that have among their number not old Bill and Fred with a school tie from downtown Toronto. We're talking about the leaders of the world. We're talking about the banking leaders of the world.
Yes.
We're talking about people all over the planet that connect into a global organization which is orchestrating an agenda. And it's interesting. You mentioned that story. Virtually everyone on the planet can tell you a story of obvious manipulation and obvious corruption in the legal profession, in their local community. But somehow we have a mental block on the fact that there is a global version of this. And if people just go back to earlier this century and they read the books of people who knew what the agenda was and what they were predicting would happen, they will see that exactly that is happening. Now, George Orwell did not write 1984 from having a daydream. He was involved in the networks, particularly on the left of politics in that time, that knew what this agenda was. And when he talked about Big Brother and the Big Brother society, then he was coming not from a prediction of fact, fantasy, or fiction, but from knowledge of the agenda. And if you read that book and then apply it to what's going on now, when I first started talking about microchip people, I mean, people falling off the chair. You are microchip people, you're bloody mad. Except now they're being introduced. I met a guy, let me tell you this story quickly. A guy who joined the CIA as a scientist, as a young man, early 20s, is a genius in the area of magnetics. He, through a third party, asked to meet me a little while ago because he wanted to tell me what was going on. And obviously, for reasons I'll explain quickly now, he couldn't do it himself. And he told me that this new world order for the microchipping of people and the centralized control of the world was an absolute fact. That microchips, this is some time ago he told me this, that microchips were now so tiny they could be inserted by hypodermic in vaccination programs. And just a few months ago...
Well, I heard you talking about this Art Bell.
Sure, but just a few months ago there was a photograph printed in a British newspaper coming out of a British university, and I'm going to use it in the talk on Sunday, which is a massive blow-up of an ant. And this ant, in its little pincers, is holding a tiny little microchip, even tiny with the blow-up.
In relation to the...
Exactly. And this guy I said to him, why do you do it? Why do you work for the CIA if you don't want to do it? And he opened his shirt, and on his chest was this sachet with this gold yellowy liquid in it. And he said that drug, or his body had been manipulated to need the drug inside that sachet to survive, and if it wasn't replaced, and it has to be replaced every 72 hours, he starts to die. And he said, I am not an isolated case. There are people of genius who could use their knowledge to set the world free for free energy, no more utility bills, etc., etc., that could create abundant growth in deserts without water by using magnetics, but it's not being used. It's being used, the same knowledge, to destroy freedom and to create the centralized global fascist state.
Okay, let me remind people of who we're talking to. We're talking to David Icke from Britain, former goalie, former BBC sports announcer, former spokesman for the Green Party, and I'm saying former, present author. The Biggest Secret, the book that was delivered to me last night, and I've read it, and it's pretty amazing. I was talking to John Duggan, and I said, how many pages is it, hoping it was 100. And it's more like 500. But it's a fascinating book. A lot of interesting thoughts, a lot of interesting ideas. I love that he traces the Hollander group back to the British Secret Service. Now, I just need to find some glasses for a second, because if you want more of David, he's going to be on with John Piper on CKST. We're going to come back and talk to him some more here now, but he's going to be with John Piper of CKST Radio 1040 on your radio dial at 10 to 11 tomorrow, I believe. And that number is 280-1040 if you want to phone them. But he's also going to be at the Vogue Theater on Sunday, March 19th. He'll be speaking from 10 to 5:30 p.m. I have sympathy for you because I spoke for 6 hours at a different seminar at the Vancouver Public Library last Saturday. Tickets are $45, but you can get them from Ticketmaster, 280-4444. So go get yourself a cup of coffee and set your VCR. You might find this interesting, and you can even watch it again at 1 o'clock and 11 o'clock tonight. We're back, and I'm going to open up the phone lines to David Icke. Mary, you're on the line already, and hold there. You'll be the first one. But 1-888-501-8030 if you'd like to talk to David about his theories. And I'm barely touching on the book. We want people to go buy the book, and you're going to have a book signing, Granville Books, 1 o'clock Saturday. On I can't remember the address of Granville Books. 850 Granville Street. Right. You'll be there Saturday from 1 o'clock to 1 o'clock or something, and if somebody wants to go and see you for nothing, you don't have to pay $35 to get to Ticketmaster. And also this afternoon, you've got a press conference at Future Beyond Intelligence.
Yeah.
Rather intriguing store.
Yeah, it is.
1463 Robson. I went in there one time for an opening of a computer software program. They used it to give away this thing, and I walk in, and of course there's my picture on a camera. And I thought, well, there's the camera, and I recognized, wait a minute, the angle's just a little wrong. Put my hand up, and the camera was, of course, a false camera. And finally found the camera. It was just a little pinprick, just a little dot in the corner of a clock radio, and sort of neat spy stuff. Barry, sorry, yeah.
Just what did 1984 predict? Exactly that.
Well, 1984 was the wrong year. It didn't really take place. I wrote a newsletter. I should get you a copy that's called 1994.
Yeah.
Because 1994 was when it happened. So that he was out by 10 years. So 1994, the government's computers were starting to control everything, and memory had become cheap enough that the governments all around the world were taking their old computer tapes from 1980 and 1983, and they were putting all their old information back in so that the computers were stacking it all up. We had a whole bunch, 84 to 94. Computers didn't really control us, but 1994 they took over.
I'll tell you one thing just very quickly, David. Because I travel a lot, I've been in something like 25 countries in 3.5 years, it's allowed me to see that the things that appear to be happening in an individual country, if people don't travel, are actually happening everywhere, and they're happening at the same time. And this, again, shows that there is a global agenda unfolding and some kind of centralized coordination, which the evidence overwhelmingly says is based in Europe and overwhelmingly in London, particularly the city of London, which has been an epicenter of this network for a very, very long time. But it's amazing when you go into a country you've never been in before, and you see the same legislation being introduced, the same scams being played, and the same agenda unfolding, which shows that it's not just happening in one country, it's happening everywhere at the same time.
But not just McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken. Mary, your turn.
Yes, I look forward to reading the book that your guest has authored. I haven't read it yet. I have a question to ask. On the back of the American $1 bill, I believe there's the inscription in Latin, and translated into English, it says New World Order.
Yeah, I mean, the translation is supposed to say basically new secular order, announcing the arrival of the new secular order. And that symbol, if anyone looks at a dollar bill, of the pyramid with the capstone missing, is an ancient symbol used by this Illuminati, illuminated ones, illuminated into knowledge that the general public does not have. And there is a secret language, which I talk about in The Biggest Secret and will reveal in some detail on Sunday, which when you know what it is, you start to see it everywhere. For instance, British intelligence, their symbol is a pyramid with the capstone missing. You look at, even, I mean, I know this may sound bizarre and extreme, but you look at the evidence. Dealey Plaza, where Kennedy was shot, when you look at the street plan, it is a pyramid with a capstone missing. And that's another area of Dallas that this Illuminati has held to be sacred, Dealey Plaza. The first Freemasonic temple in Dallas was there. But the key symbol of the Illuminati, for reasons that I explain in the books, that comes up again and again, is the lighted torch. And what have they put on Kennedy's grave? The lighted torch. What is the symbol on top of the Pont d'Alma tunnel in Paris where people take their tribute to Diana? It's a massive depiction of the torch held by the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor was actually given to New York by French Freemasons from Paris. A lot of people don't know that there's almost a virtual mirror of the Statue of Liberty on an island in the River Seine in Paris. And that classic woman holding the flame, while Americans believe, because for understandable reasons, that's a symbol that America is free, in truth, that's an ancient symbol of this Illuminati. What that's actually saying is, we run the show, we're telling you, but because you don't know our secret language, you can't see it. It's all around us, but you need to know the code to see it.
Now, can we get a camera in on page 203 of this book? Here's a picture of the Kennedy assassination. I've been to Dealey Plaza. I was there actually about 3 weeks after the assassination. And in Texas, you make the point about the fact that we got 4 Secret Service people riding on the Cadillac behind and in front in the actual limousine, which I've also seen in the Niagara Falls Museum. There is no Secret Service people around Kennedy himself. Now, isn't that the way their entourage ran through the whole city? I mean, it wasn't just that they did this at Dealey Plaza.
No, but of course, you wouldn't just take people off Kennedy's vehicle in terms of security just before the gun started firing.
But you make the point about them standing back because of the assassination in Israel.
Yeah.
Okay,
at the point where the gun started firing.
So if we're going to take all these conspiracies and put them together, then we take, if it's going to happen, it should happen everywhere, shouldn't it?
No. I mean, let's just take those. I mean, the point you make is perfectly explainable. First of all, there was a guy called Fletcher Prouty who used to work at a high level in America with the various intelligence agencies and stuff. And he once said something very profound. He said, if you want to know who was involved in an assassination, look at who had the ability to remove the security at the key time and use that ability, that power. Now, the Kennedy assassination, of course, it was possible for security people to be not on that car all the way through for when the shooting started, because if they'd have moved off Kennedy's car just before the shooting started, bingo, people would have said, hold on, what was all that about? With the Israeli Prime Minister Rabin, you had a completely different situation. You had a corridor of soldiers making a corridor for Rabin to come down and get in his car. When you look at the footage shot by an onlooker, a tourist, the assassin was in among those soldiers, just standing there. Now, had they pulled back earlier, the assassin would have been standing alone with a gun, and people would have said, hold on, there's an assassin with a gun. So they held back, and it's amazing when you see the footage. As soon as Rabin comes into view, the soldiers take a step back, leaving the guy with the gun standing there, and of course the gun's fired. And then again, just apply that to the Diana situation in Paris. What happened at the crucial time when the run-up, literally minutes before, to the crash, happened? The security, what there was of it, was removed.
It was all put on the front of the car and the Land Rover in the front of the hotel. But
exactly.
It was
removed.
That was the Trojan, that was the contract.
No, that's the official story. If you read the chapter in the book called The Goddess and the King, there are 60 pages about the Diana murder, and when you read them, anyone walking away saying it was an accident, well, I would be staggered. The exact detail of how it was done and for what reason we can debate about. The fact that that was set up is without question. I'll give you a couple of examples. There are 17 traffic cameras between the Ritz Hotel and the Pont d'Alma Tunnel. They have never gone down in unison since they were put in or since. Those 17 traffic cameras all failed together
that night,
in the time it took for the car to go from the Ritz Hotel to the tunnel. Because, of course, had they not failed, there would have been no mystery. You want to know what happened to Diana? Okay, put the video in. They all went down. Not only that, as one of these enthusiasts who...
I'm starting to believe you, David, so...
One of these enthusiasts that, listen into police messages, he's got quite sophisticated equipment because it's his hobby. He confirms that not only did those cameras go down in that period of the car's brief journey, all the police frequencies in central Paris went down at the same time. It did not come back until she was officially dead.
Okay.
Just a coincidence, nothing to worry about.
Well, you say this was an extraordinary decision for a man obsessed with his own security. Bob Loftus, the former head of security at Herod, said, compared with the protection that Al-Fayed affords himself, which is very professional, of a very high standard, that which was afforded to the mother of the future King of England was a Mickey Mouse operation. But if you follow what happens in here, and you go, that means that Al-Fayed sacrificed his son. Because you can't have that crash without expecting, how do you have that crash to kill Diana without killing your own son, if he is a mastermind?
Well, I'm not saying in the book that Mohammed Al-Fayed masterminded it. What I'm saying in the book very clearly, and it is quite
Well,
obvious.
I think you say here that the only person that's capable of removing that security is if Dodi says his father did it.
Yeah, when I'm saying, David, that Mohammed Al-Fayed did not mastermind it, what I'm saying is at his level within this network, Mohammed Al-Fayed is a gopher. He may seem to be powerful, he may seem to have a lot of money, but his wealth is dependent on him doing as he's told. And when you really get into this deeply, you find that getting into this network is much easier than getting out. You talk to anybody that's involved.
Getting out of any gang is tough.
And when these people say, you will do this, you will do it, you take the rewards of being part of it, but those rewards come with a price. You never say no. And just to finish the point, what I am saying about Mohammed Al-Fayed, and I've been saying it for a year, and the silence from Harrods has been deafening, is that that crash could not have happened in the circumstances it did unless Mohammed Al-Fayed had made significant decisions to bring that circumstances about. And I've just been watching, before I came on the show in the green room, an interview with Trevor Rees-Jones, the security guard. And
his new book is over.
In his new book, he confirms what I'm saying in that book, which is that no one in that organization, including Dodi Fayed, would cough without permission and agreement from the father. He runs Harrods, and he ran his son's life with a rod of iron. And it was Mohammed Al-Fayed, for instance, that set the whole thing in train when, having invited Diana down to the holiday, he called Dodi at his apartment just off the Champs-Élysées and said, you're going to get down here and spend some time with Diana. At the time, Dodi's with his girlfriend, Kelly Fisher, not expecting to go down there. One call from his father, and he runs. And so what Dodi was supposed to have decided about the security and stuff could not have been decided alone without his father, because nothing ever was.
Yeah. One of the, you've got in this Georgia Strait, remember this, you want to find out more about David, you can get hold of the Georgia Strait here. There's really 4 pages of stories here by Brian Sally. Those are people control the world, and it goes on and on. I'm going to stay away from that topic right now, but not because of censorship, but because of some other things I want to talk to.
It's also a big story. We take a long time, yeah?
Yeah, we talk about the BC Skeptics Society in here, quoted, and I went to a BC Skeptics meeting out at Simon Fraser University one time, and the subject was the assassination of President Kennedy. And I had to laugh, because here was this fellow there talking about Kennedy and the conspiracy theory. And I, of course, have always believed that there was a conspiracy, that there was a plot to kill Lincoln. And it's very clear that there was a plot to kill Lincoln and who was involved, etc., etc. And I thought that was well known. The fellow who was there I can't remember who it was now, was there to discuss the assassination of Kennedy and the big conspiracy to do that, was dumbfounded when I asked him about Lincoln, because he never really thought about that or gone into that. But you've got the Masonic Lodge, everybody's a member. But if the guy that hunts him down and the John Wilkes Booth are both 32nd degree Masons or something, why is that a conspiracy theory? If they because both sides were. Isn't that just another one of those coincidences?
Well, coincidences on the scale that come up when you're investigating this manipulation, it goes beyond the bounds of, that's just a coincidence. I mean, the same things come up again and again. And let me just point one thing out. There's a lot of people, when they're investigating this, who hurl generalizations all over the place, like, it's the Freemasons. Now, the vast majority of Freemasons have no idea what that organization is being used for. The way it works, indeed it's a good way of explaining the way the whole conspiracy works, is through the pyramidal structure that is created. I mean, if you look at almost any organization today, whether it's a bank, a government, a business, whatever, a secret society is a classic. They are structured as pyramids. Lower levels have a certain amount of information which is related only to what their contribution needs to be. Intelligence agencies call it need to know, or compartmentalization. It's only those few at the top of the pyramid that know how all the individual contributions lower down actually connect to create a certain agenda, a certain outcome, and introduction of the agenda. The people down here, in banks, in secret societies, in governments, they're going to work in the media. They're going to work, they want to earn a living, they go home to their families, they have no idea what they're playing a part in. And in this way, the number of people in these organizations, whether it's the Freemasons or the governments or whatever, who are knowingly manipulating is tiny compared with those who are unknowingly making a contribution to an advance an agenda every day they have no idea exists. It's the only way it could work, because if more than a few people knew about this, it wouldn't be happening.
Parents do this with their kids all the time. They have a knowing look across the table while their 12-year-old, their 6-year-old, their 9-year-old, their 16-year-old is about to do something. You look and say, well, it doesn't matter what I say. He or she's going to do it anyway. Let's let them learn it on their own. I mean, that's not a conspiracy. Genevieve from U.S. Minster, are you there?
Yes, hi. You just caught me with the most bowl food. Good morning.
Morning.
Basically, Mr. Icke, if what you say is true, what can we do to stop them?
Good question.
Well,
should have thought.
there's two ways of looking at a situation you want to change. One is to find a solution, and the other one is to remove the cause of the problem. And I think the latter is by far the most sensible and most wise. The cause of the problem is this. You cannot, there is a network of a relatively few people that just end up in the positions of power, but you cannot control the direction of the lives of billions physically. There's not enough of you. The only way you can do it is to manipulate the way those billions think, see themselves, see the world, and see events, so that they live their lives and make their decisions in line with the agenda you want to unfold. And what we're looking at here is the mass manipulation of what we call public opinion. And so often, people look at the news day after day and they do not question it. They take a version of a person, a version of an event, and they take that to be true without any questioning. And basically, what's happened over the centuries to the present day is the human race has been manipulated. The human race, which has the potential for infinite control of its own destiny, for infinite creativity, for infinite levels of thought, has allowed itself to become a two-legged herd of sheep, where we just follow the ones in front. We follow the university professor's version of life. We follow what the politicians claim is happening. We follow what the economists say is happening. And until we start questioning and asking a key question, which is, who benefits from me believing what this guy's asking me to believe, then this manipulation is going to go on. However, as I travel the world, and Vancouver is a fantastic example of this, perhaps the best, more and more groups and people are starting to get together in various elements, whether it's the financial world, politics, or the big picture of how it all fits together. And they're beginning to, instead of run away from this system or shut their minds to it, they are turning, they are looking at it, and they are running straight at it. And what we're going to see in the next few years, as we reverse this process of humanity descending into sheep-like mentality, to reversing that, to coming into our true potential and our true power to think for ourselves, we're going to see this network of manipulation and control unravel. And I think we're at a cusp now where that change of direction is taking place. And I think in the next 5 years, it's going to be a wonderful time to be alive. But if you're going to heal something, we have to first know there's something to be healed. And that's what I'm trying to do here. Put out information that doesn't get to people normally, so we can see there is a problem which needs to be addressed. And the next 5 years, this world's going to change dramatically. And we're going to start seeing freedom in its true sense, perhaps for the first time in known human history.
Right. And then 1-888-501-8030, a couple of lines free. I just want to make it clear that if you want to see David Icke, you can see him in person for 7 hours. 10 to 5:30 p.m., 7.5 hours. Tickets are $45. There's some at $55 as well, but they're just about all sold out. But $45 tickets to the Vogue Theatre, Sunday, March 19th, year 2000, which is the last year of the 20th century, not the first year of the new millennium. $45. And the phone number for Ticketmaster is 280-4444. 280-4444. Now that's a big amount of money. And if you don't have $45, but you'd really like to talk to this, I'm going to call you a fascinating individual, then you can catch him at a press conference this afternoon at 1463 Robson at 3 o'clock. And that press conference is going to be dealing with some of the claims or charges or things that are being made against David. And it's at the store called The Future Beyond Intelligence. And it's a pretty tiny store if a lot of people show up.
Yeah.
And Saturday, 1 to 3 p.m., you can also see him for nothing. Buy a book and get a book signed at the Granville Book Company at 850 Granville. And if you've got something that you want to talk about, if you want to go and bend his ear or twist his arm or shake his hand, either one of those places you can get to for nothing. 1463 Robson this afternoon from 3 o'clock to 4 or so, I guess. Granville Street Book Company Saturday from 1 to 3. Now, I just want to read something more, and then I'm going to go back to the phone lines, and the lines are full, and we're just about out of time. But I want to go to page 89 of this book, The Biggest Secret. And it's called, this chapter is called the Sons of God, and the Sons of God is spelled S-U-N-S. And you say, okay, a little quiz. Who am I talking about? He was born to a virgin by immaculate conception through the intervention of the Holy Spirit. This fulfilled an ancient prophecy. When he was born, the ruling tyrant wanted to kill him. His parents had to flee to safety. All male children under the age of 2 were slain by the ruler as he sought to kill the child. Angels and shepherds were at his birth, and he was given gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. He was worshipped as the Savior of men and led a moral and humble life. He performed miracles, which included healing the sick, giving sight to the blind, casting out devils, and raising the dead. He was put to death on the cross between 2 thieves, and he descended to hell and rose from the dead to ascend back to heaven. You say it sounds exactly like Jesus, doesn't it? But it's not. That is how they describe the Eastern Savior, God known as Vrishna, 1,200 years before Jesus is claimed to have been born. If you want a Savior God who died so our sins could be forgiven, take your pick from the ancient world. Because these heroes were there long before Jesus was even heard of. And you talk about Krishna of Hindustan, Buddha Sakya of India, Salavahana of Bermuda, Osiris and Horus of Egypt, Odin of Scandinavia, Crete of Chaldea, Zoroaster of Persia, Baal and Tot of Phoenicia, Indra of Tibet, Bali of Afghanistan, Joel of Nepal, Luthra of Villagese, Tammuz of Syria and Babylon, Attis of Phrygia, Samolex of Thrace, is it? Zor of the Bronze, Adad of Syria, Vivatat and Samokhadam of Siam, Alcides of Thebes, Mikado of the Sintus, Bidu of Japan, Hesusur of Ross, and Benbrilium of the Druids, Thor, son of Odin of the Gauls, Cadmus of Greece, Hil and Theta of Mandalite, Getnat and... I'm going to give up. There's a whole other paragraph of them. There are so many.
I think that needs a round of applause. I couldn't have read that out like that. Yeah, that's the thing that struck me, David, was that the Jesus story is a repeat of a constantly recurring story, which has been put many, many times in different historical contexts with different people named. And back in ancient Babylon, where the blueprint of control by religion very much was honed, their son of God, Tammuz Ninus, went under a number of names, was said after he had been executed to save the sins. He was put in a tomb and a rock was rolled across the front, and 3 days later the rock was rolled back and Tammuz Ninus had gone. They also said that the father god of Babylon, Nimrod, and his son Tammuz were one. The same recurring themes, and I'm not knocking anyone's religion or their right to have it, but if we're going to have the ability to get a fix on all possibilities, so we can then make our mind up what we're going to believe, surely before we make that fix, we should ask for all information to be available, and not just that, which would get us to think in a certain way.
Okay, I'm sorry to Dennis, Bill, Joanne, and Philip, who are holding on the phone lines. I monopolized the conversation. Again, if you want to meet David Icke in person, you can see him at 3 o'clock this afternoon. That's Wednesday at the Future Beyond Intelligence store at 1463 Robson. Good place to go just to see the crazy stuff they've got. You can buy wind-up radios and wind-up flashlights there. You can see them 3 o'clock on, 1 to 3 at the Granville Bookstore at 850 Granville on Saturday free, or pay $45 and go to the Bow Theater from 10 to 5:30 on Sunday. Phone 280-4444 for tickets, and you can watch this again at 1 o'clock and 11 o'clock tonight. Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.